What's good, YouTube? It's your boy ZT Zoomin, and I'm back with another video for you guys. So I realized since I posted my exhaust, my Borla X pipe for sale, which is still for sale by the way, link down below in the comment section, you guys go check it out. So since I posted that for sale, I've gotten a ton of questions about my exhaust system, and I've realized there's a lot of people out there that don't totally understand how each one of the different sections of the exhaust work, how they work together, what the names of them are. So in today's video, I want to explain to you guys the 6th gen Camaro exhaust system. Now this is mainly for the SS's and the ZL1s, how the exhaust system works, what each different section is called, and what exactly it'll do if you decide to swap it out with an aftermarket system. So let's go ahead and get this thing on the lift. That way I can show you guys actually each one of the sections that we're talking about. So on most newer model cars, the exhaust system can be broken up into 3 sections. Those 3 sections, they start off with the exhaust manifolds, which is what they're called from the factory, or the aftermarket part is called headers. The next section is the mid pipe or an X pipe, and on some cars they actually have an H pipe. And then the last section is the axle back section, and that's generally your mufflers and the tips and things like that. So let's start with the part that people upgrade the most, and that is the axle back. An axle back exhaust is literally just from your rear axle back. That's all the exhaust is. On most newer cars, this is how they're set up. On older cars, it used to be called a cat back because the exhaust would break up back right behind the cats. But on these newer model cars, they don't really set up the exhaust like that anymore. So if any of you out there purchase an axle back, you will be purchasing only from here back. So it's literally just the mufflers in the tips. Changing the axle back allows you to change the sound of your car. If you want a deeper tone, if you want a more high-pitched tone, but if you're changing out the axle back, that is to change the sound. And then it also changes out your tips. Now I have the Corsa Npp Exhaust. Real quick, let me explain the Npp because I know some people don't know if they have Npp or if they don't have Npp. So Npp is Chevy's factory code for this specific type of exhaust. It's similar to how Chevys call the Camaros the ZL1s, or if you have a truck, it's a Z71. That's just the production code designation that it was given for that specific upgrade on the vehicle. So the Npp is a valved exhaust. So you can either have the valve open for louder, or you close the exhaust and it quiets down a lot. An easy way for you guys out there to find out whether you have Npp or you don't is whether or not you have the quad tip exhaust. If you don't have quad tips, you'll just have the dual tips, which will be a single tip on each side. Quad tips are double tips on each side. So now that I've got Npp out the way, I have Corsa's Npp valved exhaust system. So basically it's an aftermarket exhaust, but it still retains the Npp function of open and closing the valve. Some of the really popular brands out there are Borla and Corsa. Those are probably the 2 most popular, but they also cost the most. So some people will opt for like the MBRP, I believe it's called, which is another really good sounding exhaust, but a much cheaper option. And again, purchasing your axle back, that's where you want to choose the type of sound that you want your car to have. A lot of manufacturers claim that you'll get more horsepower, you get better flow, which is true. Typically you do get better flow, but rarely do you pick up horsepower. You might notice a slight better throttle response, but again, it's pretty minimal. If you're choosing an axle back, it is purely for the sound, and that's it. The next section of the exhaust is the mid pipe, or in my situation, or on 6th gen Camaros, it's an X pipe. So what the X pipe does is it allows the exhaust flowing out from each side of the motor. It flows into 2 separate pipes, and then those 2 pipes meet up and they have a hole right there in the middle, and it allows the exhaust to balance itself out. Race cars or newer cars, they all use an X pipe because it flows better, but an X pipe also gives you a little bit more of a raspy sound. sound. The old school muscle guys, they used to have what's called an H pipe, where your two pipes would go all the way down, and then at some point on the pipes they would have a connecting pipe in the middle that connected the exhaust gases to allow them to kind of balance each other out. It gives like a deeper, throatier kind of a sound that a lot of the old school muscle guys still like, but the X pipes actually do flow better. Now if you guys decide to upgrade this section, they basically only make aftermarket X pipes. I haven't seen any H pipes that are aftermarket. When I had a Mustang, you could have the option to pick either an H pipe or an X pipe. I just don't see it on these cars. Pretty much everybody does the X pipe. Now I have Corsa's double X pipe, or they call it their double helix X pipe or something like that. So basically on my mid pipe, I have two different sections at which they call the X, which is where the two pipes meet, and they meet two different times. What does that do? It adds a little bit more rasp. Is it that significant? Some people argue it is, some people argue it isn't. I don't think that it hurts any. Now when you're upgrading these sections of pipes, most of the time the pipes will be larger than the factory pipe. So more often than not, all of this piping will be 3-inch piping going all the way back. If you guys decide to upgrade your X pipe, the power gain that you'll see is relatively minimal. Again, if you're upgrading the mid pipe, it's not gonna change the sound of your car. Whatever the sound of your car is from the axle back is gonna be the sound. If you swap out your mid pipe, it's going to amplify the sound. And then if you remove the secondary caps, which I have, it makes the sound even louder and gives you a little bit more rasp. Again, you might see a little bit better throttle response, but not anything significant. Do not buy either one of these sections of pipes hoping to gain more power. This is purely for the sound. The axle back is the type of sound. The mid pipe / X pipe is for that sound to be louder. What up, you guys? It's your boy ZT checking in. I'm in the middle of editing this video right now, and I know that all of my exhaust parts are aftermarket, but I still have my entire stock exhaust, and I go over that at the end of this video so that you can see a comparison between the two. Let's get back to the video. Now, the next section of pipes here you can't really see, but they're the exhaust manifolds, which is what the factory ones are called. The exhaust manifolds have a heat shield over them, so it makes it kind of tough to see up in there. Or if you're buying exhaust manifolds aftermarket, they're called headers. Now there's two different types of headers. There's long tube headers and there's what they call shorty headers. I actually haven't seen any shorties for sale for the 6th gen Camaro, so that may be a thing of the past that sort of just phased out, because I know the stock exhaust manifolds flow extremely well for what they are. So what you'll see often is long tube headers. Now long tube headers will come all the way down, delete these primary caps, and it will connect to your mid pipe right about here. Often you'll see people still add cats after the long tube headers. Some people do, some people don't. But if you're in California like me, long tube headers aren't legal, period, whether you've got cats or not. So that's why I don't have them on my car, because once you get long tube headers, you can't really hide that sound anymore. They are loud as hell. But if you pick up long tube headers, you will see a power gain. So if you get long tube headers and you pair that up with a tune, you can see a gain depending on who you talk to or whether or not they have a full exhaust. But generally you see a gain of anywhere of 15 to 25 rear wheel horsepower, which for a single modification is pretty good at its price point. Now be aware, if you delete the primary cats, you have O2 sensors directly behind those primary cats. So those O2 sensors will throw a code unless you have a tune to tune that out. Some people say even if you buy the aftermarket high flow cats to go on your long tubes, that they still throw a code. So it seems to be pretty hit or miss whether or not you'll throw a code for getting long tube headers. But buying headers or long tube headers will give you the largest power gain, and it gives your car a very unique sound. I don't know how to explain it, but it just sounds raw. I love the way long tubes sound, but I live in California, so that's just a no-go for me. Now, if you guys still have your stock exhaust system on your car, and right now you get underneath your car and you look, you may notice that your X pipe and your axle back, they're connected. There is no place for those two to disconnect. So from factory, Chevy actually makes, all the way coming from the cats, one solid piece all the way back to the tips. Most other car manufacturers don't do that. They'll break it up someplace in there, but for whatever reason, Chevy doesn't. So if you guys are buying just an axle back, or you're buying just an X pipe, like the Borla mid pipe that I have for sale, if you buy just one of those, be aware that you will have to cut your stock exhaust system to get that to fit into there. Now, depending on which company you buy it from, all the companies provide the clamps that you need to mate up the pipes to each other, the factory pipes and the aftermarket pipes. They all give you a clamp that you need to be able to mate those up. But just be aware you will need some type of pipe cutter to be able to install the aftermarket exhaust on your car if you buy an axle back or mid pipe. One thing I forgot to mention, you guys, is this section of pipe right here. So it's a little bit dark in there, but right there, it mates up to the exhaust manifold, and this mates up to your mid pipe or X pipe. So you can replace this section of pipe and get what they call a test pipe, but just be aware, most exhaust shops won't take this section of pipe off for you. If you guys get it, more than likely you'll have to do it yourselves, because removing the cats is actually a federal offense. So just be aware of that. It's not illegal to have it on your car, but it's a federal offense for any shop to remove these from your car. So more often than not, shops will tell you no unless you know somebody that works there. So this is what the factory exhaust looks like. There's the two secondary caps right there. That's where the O2 sensor plugs up. They've got two different connections. That one there has the exhaust flange that mates up to the other flange on the exhaust manifold. This one on this side actually slides into a clamp. So that's why that one looks a little bit different. And then we move our way on down. Has like these little flex connections right there. There's a heat shield. And then there is the factory X pipe right there. Now, if you have an automatic transmission or the A8 like I do, you have these AFM valves. These are air fuel management valves. Now, they open and they close based on whether or not you're in 4-cylinder mode. And what that does is disrupts the exhaust frequencies a little bit so that you don't get any weird sounds coming out of your car, because when you go into 4-cylinder mode, your exhaust will actually make a funky noise. This section of the exhaust is actually crushed. Now, this does not bother the flow anyway. Believe it or not, it seems like it would restrict the flow right there. A lot of people say that it can't help any, but technically the scientific way, if you were to look at the flow, as long as the diameter inside of the pipe is the exact same size, you don't lose any flow, supposedly. And then we come down to the NPP exhaust. Now this is Chevy's factory NPP. Another easy way to tell if you have NPP or you don't is if you have this big box, or some people like to refer to it as the suitcase. So they call this the suitcase exhaust. Sorry, my exhaust is a little bit dirty. It's been back here in the corner of the shop. There's the dual tips right there, and then there's the factory NPP valve, or just the exhaust valve. If you guys do decide to replace your exhaust, you will cut off the exhaust back here after the crushed sections. If you want to replace that crushed section of your exhaust, you have to buy the mid pipe, like the Borla X pipe that I have for sale. It will delete the crushed sections. If you have the A8 like I do, you'll retain the AFM valves. I hope in today's video I was able to answer all your questions that you have about the exhaust on the 6th Gen Camaro. The exhaust is actually pretty simple. It's not too complicated. Remember, if you want to add power, long tube headers will add power and change the sound. If you want your car to just be louder, you replace the mid pipe. If you want to change the sound and tone of your actual exhaust, you replace the axle back. If you guys got any questions, drop them down below. Just like always, you know I'm down to help you guys out. I love helping out my community, and I love when you guys help me out, man. We've been growing like crazy. We're getting a ton of subscribers. We broke that 250 mark. I appreciate each and every one of you guys. It's honestly crazy when I go back and look at how many views I'm getting, to think that there's that many people taking that time out of their day to fuck with me. I appreciate it, you guys. But this your boy ZT zooming, and I'm keeping it moving, baby. I'm out. Peace.